You know the crushing disappointment when you bite into your homegrown tomato expecting sweet summer perfection, but instead you get something that tastes like wet cardboard? I discovered 7 techniques that transformed my garden disasters into the sweetest tomatoes my neighbours have ever tasted. Today, I'm walking you through the exact methods that took my tomatoes from a disappointing 4 out of 10 on the taste scale to a mind-blowing 9. Technique number 6 is going to shock you because it involves doing something that seems completely wrong, but actually triggers a biological response that doubles your sugar content. Here's what seed companies don't tell you. Sweetness in tomatoes isn't about picking the right variety, it's about understanding the balance between sugars and acids within the fruit. Think of it like a seesaw. When you have high sugars and low acids, that's when you get that incredible sweet flavour that makes you close your eyes and go, wow! The problem is, most growing methods accidentally tip this balance the wrong way. Commercial growers breed for shipping and shelf life, not flavour. That's why store-bought tomatoes taste like nothing. Scientists measure tomato sweetness using the brick scale. Most supermarket tomatoes score between a 3 to 4. Some heirloom varieties can hit 6 to 7. But using these techniques, I've grown tomatoes that consistently score 8 to 9, and sometimes even hit 10. That's the difference between meh and holy cow, what did you do to these tomatoes? Technique number 1, get your soil chemistry right. This first technique alone will boost your tomato sweetness by at least 30%. You need to get your soil pH between 6 and 6.8. When your soil is too alkaline, above 7, your tomatoes can't absorb phosphorus properly. And phosphorus is directly responsible for sugar production in fruit. Testing your soil is easier than you think. Just grab a basic soil test kit from any garden centre or online for about £10. Stick the probe in your soil, wait 5 minutes, and you'll know exactly where you stand. If your pH is too high, add some sulphur or peat moss in early spring. If it's too low, add some dolomite lime. Do this at least 6 weeks before planting because pH changes take time. They're not instant. You also need enough organic matter. Tomatoes stressed for nutrients will never develop full sweetness. Work in at least 2 inches of good compost before planting. This feeds the soil microbes that help your plants absorb nutrients much more efficiently. Technique number 2, master the water stress method. Now this method sounds crazy, but the secret to sweeter tomatoes is actually stressing them out a little bit with your watering schedule. Most people water their tomatoes every day with little sips. That's the worst thing you can do for flavour. Instead, water deeply twice a week, giving each plant about 10 litres. This encourages deep root growth and helps the plant access more nutrients. In the last 3 weeks before harvest, reduce your watering by about 30%, so probably about 6 to 7 litres. This controlled water stress forces the plant to concentrate sugars in fruit instead of diluting them with excess water. Your tomatoes might look slightly wilted in the afternoon heat, and that's exactly what we want. The plant thinks it's in survival mode and packs more energy into each fruit. A University of California study found that tomatoes grown with controlled water stress had 40% higher sugar content than those grown with consistent moisture. But the timing is crucial. You can't stress young plants, but mature plants with developing fruit respond beautifully. Technique number 3, choose genetics that actually taste good. Here's some tough love. If you're planting standard varieties like Early Girl or Better Boy, you're fighting an uphill battle for sweetness. These were bred for commercial production, which means they prioritise disease resistance, uniform size, and shipping ability over flavour. For full-size tomatoes, try Cherokee Purple, Brandywine, or Black Crim. These consistently score 8 to 9 on the brick scale. Cherokee Purple is my personal favourite because it's reliable and has this incredible sweet smoky flavour that makes people think I'm a gardening genius. For cherry tomatoes, House Tomato and Sun Gold are absolute game changers. I've had people literally ask me what I spray on them because they're so sweet. Secret isn't what I spray, it's what I planted. Here's something interesting about genetics. Smaller tomatoes are almost always sweeter than larger ones. This is because sugars get concentrated in a smaller space. If you want maximum sweetness, focus on cherry and grape varieties. A sun gold cherry tomato will consistently beat any beefsteak variety for pure sugar content. In fact, a research study comparing 152 tomato varieties found that the sweetest ones were almost exclusively heirloom or specialty varieties. The top 10 sweetest varieties weren't available in any supermarket. Technique 4. Feed them right for sweetness. Most people completely mess up their tomato nutrition, and it kills their sweetness potential. They see lush green growth and think they're doing absolutely brilliant. But all that nitrogen actually reduces fruit quality. High nitrogen creates beautiful plants but produces bland, watery fruits. What you want is a fertilizer ratio around 3-4-6 NPK. Low nitrogen, moderate phosphorus, and higher potassium. Potassium is your secret weapon for sweetness. I make my own high potassium fertilizer using banana or comfrey. Just combine equal parts bananas and brown sugar, leave it for 7 to 10 days, and you've made your own banana fermented fruit juice. It's loaded with potassium and it's so easy and cheap to make. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to make this and show you exactly how to make it yourself. For store-bought fertilizers, look for tomato-specific blends with higher potassium levels, avoiding anything with high nitrogen once your plants start flowering. Actually, a Cornell University study showed that tomatoes grown with high potassium, low nitrogen fertilizer had 25% higher sugar content than those grown with balanced fertilizers. Technique number 5. Prune for quality over quantity. This technique is emotionally difficult, but absolutely crucial for sweetness. You need to limit your tomato plant to 4 to 6 fruit clusters maximum. I know it feels wrong removing perfectly good baby tomatoes, but think about it this way. Would you rather have 20 mediocre tomatoes or 12 absolutely incredible ones? When you remove those extra clusters, all that plant energy goes into making the remaining fruits bigger and sweeter. I do this when the fruits are marble sized. The difference in flavour is night and day. Also, remove all the suckers. Those shoots that you see that grow between the main stem and the branches, these suckers steal energy from fruit development. Most people are afraid to prune their tomatoes because they think more branches mean more fruit. But what you get is more small, bland fruit instead of fewer amazing ones. Ohio State University research found that properly pruned tomato plants produced fruit with 35% higher sugar content than unpruned plants. The pruned plants had fewer total tomatoes, but each one was significantly larger and sweeter. Tomatoes need direct sunlight to develop maximum sweetness. Remove any leaves below the first fruit cluster and any leaves that are shading developing fruit. More light exposure directly translates to higher sugar content. Technique number 6, the game-changing stress technique. Here's that mind-blowing technique I promised earlier. 3 weeks before your tomatoes are ready to harvest, you're going to intentionally stress them with temperature swings. This sounds like plant torture, but it triggers an incredible biological response. I cover my plants with row covers during the day to increase the heat, then remove them at night so they cool down rapidly. This 10 to 20 degree temperature difference triggers the plant survival response, concentrating sugars like crazy. It's the same principle behind why mountain-grown fruits are often sweeter. The harsher conditions with hot days and cooler nights force the plant to pack more energy into each fruit. Commercial growers in California actually use this technique on premium crops. The science behind this is fascinating. When plants experience temperature stress, they produce more of an enzyme called sucrose phosphate synthase. This enzyme is directly responsible for sugar production and transport in fruit. More enzyme activity means sweeter tomatoes. Technique number 7, perfect your harvest timing. The final piece is harvest timing, and this is where most people completely blow it. They see that first hint of colour and immediately pick the tomato, thinking it will ripen better on the counter. Wrong move. A tomato develops about 40% of its final sugar content in the last week of ripening on the vine. When you pick too early, you're literally throwing away nearly half of your potential sweetness. Here's what to look for. Wait until the tomato is 80 to 90% coloured, but still has a slight give when you press gently. At this point, you can bring it inside to finish ripening, and you'll get the full sugar development without risking it splitting or getting eaten by wildlife. The skin should have a slight shine, and the colour should be deep and rich. If you're growing red varieties, wait until there's barely any green left on it. For other colours, learn what the fully ripe colour looks like and wait until you're almost there. Temperature matters for ripening too. Tomatoes ripen best between 18 and 24 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's hotter than 30 degrees, bring them inside to finish ripening. High heat actually breaks down the sugars you've worked so hard to develop. A University of Florida research study showed that vine-ripened tomatoes had 60% more sugar than those picked at the breaker stage and ripened off the vine. That is a massive difference in flavour. Here's your simple timeline for implementing these techniques. This is what I do in the UK. In March, test and adjust your soil pH. This is crucial because it takes 6 to 8 weeks to fully take effect. April is for planting your sweet varieties and starting your deep watering routine. May through July, focus on pruning and feeding with low nitrogen, high potassium fertiliser. August is when you start the temperature stress techniques, and September is harvest time. Start planning next year's improvements right now while this season's results are fresh in your mind. If you implement these techniques this season, you'll probably see a 30 to 40% improvement in sweetness. But the real magic happens next year when your soil improvements have had time to work. My tomatoes went from a 5 to an 8 in the first year, then up to a 9 in the second year. Your neighbours will definitely notice the difference, but more importantly, you'll actually want to eat your homegrown tomatoes instead of wondering why you bother growing them in the first place. There's nothing quite like biting into a tomato so sweet and flavourful that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about this beautiful fruit. The techniques I've shared today are the same ones used by commercial growers who sell premium tomatoes for $8 a pound at the farmer's market. The difference is, you can grow tomatoes that are even better than those, right in your own garden. So stop settling for cardboard tomatoes. Your taste buds deserve better, and now you know exactly how to give them what they want. If this video helped you grow better tomatoes, click that next video or playlist where I share loads of other tips and tricks for growing super healthy, heavy yielding tomatoes right over here.